Hello everyone, and today I'll be doing a guide to help you choose your PC components. When looking for PC parts, there are many components like the GPU, the CPU, the motherboard, and the RAM and storage, so on. But I think I would focus on three things: the RAM, the CPU, and the GPU. Now, it is important that you focus on these, but then don't sheep out on the other parts. Like, for example, don't buy a Diablo Tech power supply that would like burn your house down. That's not worth it. So I'll be going through each component and show you an in-depth guide on what you should choose. And I'll also be going through different budgets to see which components match your budget the most. So, um, the fir- the first the first component I think we're going to discuss today is the video card or GPU, because I feel like it's the part we're going to spend the most money on. Now, ideally, I would suggest spending about 40 to 45% of your total budget on the video card, especially if you are into like 3D modeling or gaming. Well, in order to pick one, I would suggest going to PC Part Picker. Um, So before as I said before, 40 to 50% of your budget will be spent on the GPU. So for example, say in this video, um, I'll be covering $1,000 budget and show you what graphics card you should choose for that budget. So for example, if we had $1,000 in total, about 40% of that would be about 400. So here we can adjust our price range within the filters tab of the PC parts picker. And in here you want to type in 400. And it will narrow down the products within your price range for you. So for example, we have an RTX 2060 Super, which is $400. I think we're going to go with that because, it's an RTX card, which means it supports ray tracing, and it has 8 gigabytes of VRAM, GDDR6, which I think is more than enough for like 1080p at 144 FPS, or maybe like 1440p at above 60 FPS. So we're going to use this. And by the way, if you have a different budget, you can narrow the price range down. And so here on the screen is the scale of different graphics cards. Well, currently the graphics card series that I would recommend is the NVIDIA GeForce RTX, because it supports ray tracing if you're into like 3D modeling or gaming, as I said before. It What I like about the RTX cards is they have also with the new GTX 16 series cards, is they have the new NVENC encoder, which is especially useful for like live streaming and like screen recording. And yeah, I would recommend that. But if you're just into gaming and you want high frame rates and maybe you don't necessarily want a Nvidia card, or you don't have enough budget to fit in the range, um I think a more budget series or like a more budget line of graphics cards would be the Radeon graphics cards, as seen here on the screen. So, for example, like the 5 RX 590 or 580 would would be good as well for just general 1080p gaming at high settings with pretty respectable frame rates. So, with that covered, let's go to our next component. So the second part of today is the CPU. And the CPU is probably the component that you will spend the second largest amount of money on. The CPU stands for the Central Processing Unit, and it will handle things like video editing and so on. So let's get to choosing one. Now, prices of CPUs vary from $100 all the way up to 2,000 and more. But generally, I would see like it also depends on what you want to work on. So for example, if you're a content creator, like you use a lot of Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, or maybe you use like AutoCAD, Fusion 360, so on. I would go with something with stable core clock and a high core count. So within this range, I would recommend the Ryzen 5 3600. Not only does it have 6 cores and 12 threads, but it can boost clock all the way up 4.2 gigahertz, and it only costs $200, which is very cheap considering the power that this CPU has. However, if you want to go for another option, other similar options include the i7 9700K and so on. It also depends on what what do you prioritize more? Like, would you prioritize video editing more or gaming more, live streaming more or editing more, so on. However, I would go with the Ryzen 5 3600 for now, but if you want to change to something different, I would recommend something like the i7 10700K. Although this is $400, it's really new. It has 8 cores and 16 threads, and instead of the usual 3.6 gigahertz base clock, the new 10th gen chips, the new 10th gen i7 chip has a base clock of 3.8 gigahertz and can boost all the way up to 5.1 gigahertz. So I would recommend that if you have more budget. But for now, yeah, I would choose the Ryzen 5 3600 in the $1,000 budget we're going to cover today. Guys, this is it for part 1. Stand by for part 2. And since I don't want my videos to go over 10 minutes, as I want them to be as bite-sized as possible, so I'll make the part 2 as quick as possible. But for now, I'll see you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.